And welcome to the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. We're a little bit nervous this morning. We're waiting to hear the result of the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Podcast. It's coming a little bit later. This is our first one for the week. I'm Sergio Paradise, and this bloke, well, he's every woman's dream of your typical leading man. It's Titus O'Reilly.
Gee, maybe it's like Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, it is Oscar Day. I'm sort of...
You're in a movie.
A bit of a hyperbole thrown out there, just, you know.
Yeah, the greatest movie ever made, obviously, is Major League.
Yes, no question, Major League.
How that didn't win an Oscar.
The Bad News Bears.
Oh, The Club?
The Club. See, Graham Kennedy should have got one for that.
Definitely.
Jack Thompson.
It's a great... It's actually a...
John Howard, who played Achilles Jones, I think.
Really?
Yeah, John Howard, he was tall and skinny. You would never know these days.
Now, we want to start off by thanking all our supporters for making this podcast possible, and all the people who've signed up. You can go to titusoreilly.com and become a supporter. I've got a lot of funny emails in response to the supporters saying why they've donated. Tax reasons. No, it's not technically a charity. We should add that up front. Yeah, that's true. I don't want a Warnie situation down the track.
And we don't want to somehow somebody come after us once the ATO's gone after them because they've tried to make it tax deductible.
But having supporters means we can stay independent basically and keep doing what we're doing and
keep making podcasts and other stuff.
And writing and all this other stuff that we do. So now we also wanted to thank Angela Pipos for coming in last Thursday.
She was terrific, Ange, wasn't she?
Yeah, if you haven't listened to that podcast yet, it's well worth downloading. We've had some of the best feedback we've had. I think it's because we had someone knowledgeable on the podcast.
It was
actually knew about
less
sport.
Two blokes gibbering and someone who actually had a subject, was right across it, and communicated it very well. And she was well known.
Articulate.
Attractive. Well, we probably can't say that given the premise of her book about sexism in sport.
Well, we're very attractive, but the podcast medium doesn't do us justice.
Yeah, well, I think it does. But yeah, Ange was terrific. Go out and buy a book. It's called Breaking the Mould.
Yes.
Taking a hammer to sexism in sport. And she
doing very well.
It.
And we've got a guest coming up this week. You've managed to procure a guest.
Yeah. Well, when I say procure a guest, he's an old housemate. We did share a house together for 2 years.
I didn't know you lived together.
Yeah, well, and no doubt you'll ask him about this on Thursday. I'm talking, of course, of one of Australia's greatest ever comedians, the great Trevor Marmalade.
It'd be good to get Trevor in.
Big Kangaroo supporter too. He's absolutely born and bred North Melbourne supporter since he was a toddler.
So we're just at the start of the podcast, we'll say, what are the problems at North? And then sit back for an hour.
Yeah, just let him go. Just let him go. So Trev's going to be in on Thursday, and we've got plenty to talk to him about.
So that should be a fun one. Now we've got a long show today. Well, not long, but lots of stuff to cover.
Yep.
Because a lot has been happening, and we got a lot of questions in from people as well, which we really want to. I always forget to thank everyone for sending in questions. Yeah. We love getting the questions, and some people go to an enormous amount of effort.
And just completely bizarre. One's got one last night, which I don't think we'll get to this morning, but about 11 o'clock, wanting to know, when am I ever going to come clean about my fist fight with Bert Newton?
I saw that one.
What?
When are you going to come clean?
There's legal there's confidentiality clauses. There's
if you know that story, Bert was asking for it.
Yeah, and look, I really can't say too much about that, or my ankle bracelet might go off.
Now, Serge, as you predicted last week, you said Australia will win the first test in India and Steve O'Keefe will take 12 wickets.
Did I say that?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I think I said that.
You were the one person in the world.
Went out on a limb that
said, and I said, really?
SOK as
you and I were very drunk when you said it.
Yeah, well, that was true. It was.
So it was an amazing victory over there in India.
I mean, I actually watched most of this Test match. I mean, more so than I watched the footy over the weekend, and I kept thinking, especially India's second innings, I thought, at some point, they're going to put up some resistance and just bang, they'll be 2 for 300 or something. Kohli will go nuts.
You were waiting for our collapse.
Yeah, there was waiting for our batting collapse or for their batting to take over or our bowling collapse. But it just didn't happen. It was remarkable.
It was amazing. was the first time in 4,502 days since we've won
in India.
In India, and I've been marking each day. I've been putting a little mark on the wall in my study here.
It's like, you're like Andy Dupre in The Shawshank Redemption.
Don't pull that poster down. So it has been, and it was a 333 run triumph. And Steve Smith got a century. He was terrific.
Oh, I mean,
the Marsh brothers came good.
Oh, was it Friday night that I said, Marsh gone for a duck? I said, there's a shock. You know? I was writing us off at that point.
In fact, Mitch made, what did he make, 31 or something? Yeah. That kind of saved him complete. Because on the first ball of his second innings, they appealed. And he was given out, and then he challenged it and stayed in. And I thought, he dodged a bullet there.
There's one thing though,
lucky
Indians
they had
are good
a challenge left.
Yeah, they're good at appealing, the Indians.
Oh, aren't they?
Oh,
we can't get on our high horse too much because the Australians are known for aggressive appealing, but the Indians just do it like every ball. Like
let one go through to the keeper and half of them go up.
Yeah,
you know,
it's amazing.
Just to ask you, 4,502 days. Yeah. What does that equate to in years? 10, 12?
Yeah, it's like 2004, wasn't it?
Yeah, so 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, it was a long, long time. So you have to go back to that tour with, sort of Warren McGrath and everyone was playing.
Yeah, all of the genuine legends.
Plus, Warney famously wrote off O'Keefe in this before he even played.
But yeah, he did that before the tour started, didn't he?
The worst thing, though, is Warney was probably right. Just he was proven wrong. It's one of those cases where you're wrong, but really you were right in hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It will all depend what happens for the rest of the series and the rest of his career, if he has one, O'Keefe. He could well just become the answer to a trivia question if he doesn't kick on from here.
Oh, that's right. I mean, but it was great to watch. It was some of the most exciting cricket I've seen in a long, long time. That crash where the Indians went 7 wickets for 11 runs was absolutely amazing.
And Steve Smith now, because he made that 109 in the second innings, he's now I read yesterday, he's now number 6 on the list of all-time greatest batsmen in the history of cricket.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Even above Graham Yallop.
He is amazing player. We're watching greatness in front of our eyes, and people don't really. That's why when people bag him, I want to shoot them out of a t-shirt cannon into the sun.
and as compared to Michael Clarke, he's a good bloke, and he's nicely regarded by all.
To be honest, almost everyone is a good bloke. Compared to Michael Clarke.
One thing I did enjoy was watching Steve Smith make this 100 with Michael Clarke commentating.
Oh, and having to be nice about him the whole way through. And the thing I found amazing about that is, this wasn't Channel 9 commentary.
No, it wasn't.
And the two that they've basically taken over from the Channel 9 commentary is Warney and Clarke. Now, Warney, I think, gets into any commentary team just because it's Shane Warne. So as much as
it's like a nightclub.
Well, he's the best bowler, arguably, of all time. So it's like the Bradman of bowling or whatever. So of course, he's going to get in no matter how silly his opinions are and how bad a commentator. But this idea that Michael Clarke is a commentator that people keep persisting with.
Yeah, I
know. It's like persisting believing that Jimmy Tompkins is a footballer.
He still can't get a game at Port, even in a practice match.
So I found it. I thought it was such a good test. It really reinvigorated cricket a bit, I thought.
And to be honest, a week ago we weren't really looking forward to this series at all.
No,
nobody cared, and we thought, we're just going to get flogged. And now all of a sudden, back in town. Although we'll probably get flogged in the second test.
Oh, let's hope. Well, not with Steve O'Keefe. Greatest bowler of all time.
SOK.
Dale Parker writes an interesting point. Can the Aussies claim the 333 runs as a lead in the second test?
It's a nice idea, isn't it?
But we might need it still.
Cricket's not an aggregate kind of sport insofar as matches.
Yeah.
You aggregate the first and second innings, but not not entire Test series, no.
Russ Dickinson wrote in, and this is not really a question, it's a comment, but I thought it was a very good comment.
I enjoyed this.
He said, after taking 6 in the first innings, O'Keefe couldn't improve in the second, only producing the same figures. This says to me he learnt nothing, or will probably not improve from there. Is that from the Alan Border school?
Yeah, it's a hard school. So what Russ is getting at, he took 6 for 35 in the first innings.
Yeah.
And then 6 for 35 in the second innings, implying that he learnt nothing from his failures in the first innings.
Tell you that, I remember Alan Border said about Renshaw when Renshaw retired ill because he had the runs.
Yeah.
And Alan Border came out, and I was watching this live. It was right as it was happening. They cut back to the studio, and Alan Border said, well, he'd want to be half dead if I was his captain.
Yeah.
And Jesus.
What should we didn't even address this. What should he have done, Renshaw?
I think he's allowed to retire, hurt, and come back.
Yeah.
So it's not like you instantly lose, you lose a wicket. It's not ideal, is it? But seriously,
it's not the end of the world. You haven't lost the wicket.
Anyone that's been in that situation,
yeah. Especially wearing white pants on international TV.
If he was going to do it out there, that was the pitch to do it on, though. No one would have noticed.
Straight into the dust.
No one would have noticed. Brian Haynes wrote in, O'Keefe might have better figures in India than Warney. Does it bother O'Keefe that he's never been on stage with Coldplay? That might be another plus in the O'Keefe column, I reckon.
Yeah,
a lot of people would probably prefer that.
I don't know. Do you reckon O'Keefe's going to pick up the harmonica and learn those 3 notes that Warney did?
Wasn't he miming?
I think
didn't he even kind of vaguely admit that?
90% of a Coldplay live show is mime. But
is that true?
Well, maybe not 90%, but a lot of it's pre-recorded off backing tapes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you watch him. You cannot make that bigger noise with a guitar, bass, drums, and a bit of tinkly piano. It's just not possible.
Right. Well, there you go. Just lifting the lid on.
But to his credit, I think Warney did play that harmonica live because it was pretty ordinary harmonica playing.
You wouldn't want it to be mine.
Yeah, it wasn't Charlie Musselwhite.
Darren Graham writes in, and this is probably a very good point. Do you think India backed Australia? Over there, you would not know.
Well, exactly, Darren. I mean, what he's getting at there is that the Indians, they're not averse to having a bet and maybe
assisting the
outcome. Put it that way. So match fixing basically. So he's suggesting that India may have backed Australia, and they would have got pretty good odds before the match. They would have got very good odds, even in a 2-horse race.
No one thought they were saying this was the worst team to ever go over there, and all those sort of nonsense.
That happens every tour.
I don't know, 2 Marsh brothers kind of made me think that could be true.
Yeah,
considering we won without the Marsh brothers. Yeah. It just shows you. Imagine we had a couple of good cricketers in there as well. It'd be amazing. How they hang on. I know this is the conversation everyone raises, but people keep bringing it up because you can't get your head around it. How they keep getting selected is just mind-boggling to me. And you could rotate
nepotism
through.
Charge is sort of too old now.
No, it's. Do you know what the problem Australian cricketers had for a long time? They had it with Watson, and then they got it with Mitch Marsh.
Mm.
The great cricket all-rounder is the Moby Dick of Cricket Australia.
Mm.
You know, they're chasing this white whale.
Yeah.
We haven't had one for years. Yeah. And instead of just having an extra batsman or an extra bowler, pick... Because, Stark is more of an all-rounder than Mitchell Marsh.
He is these days. And there used to be a saying years ago about Australian cricket that it was harder to get out of the Australian cricket team than to get into it.
Yeah.
And then that all went aside when T20 came along and one days and there was like 8 different Australian cricket teams.
The Test one's still a bit like that,
But the Test one is very much like that now. Yeah. Everyone threw their hands up when they brought in Renshaw and Hanscom. But the Marsh brothers, Fieldingham cannot be dropped under any circumstances.
Yeah, it is amazing. Yeah. And they're not getting results, so you could roll in someone.
But they haven't for ages.
But that's what you could roll in someone else out of who's doing well in Sheffield or state level cricket. Try them out. The worst is they go out for a duck and don't get any wickets. There's no difference to what our current situation basically is like.
And how's the other thing in the cricket this weekend? Poor Steve O'Keefe, you'd reckon 12 for 70 will be the best figures of any cricketer this past weekend.
Yeah.
And then in the Shield, WA beat Victoria in 2 days, and Jason Berendorf took 14 for 89. So poor old SOK. He couldn't
Not even the best in the world.
Not even the best in Australia.
Now, last week it blew up that there was a Essendon tape leak. Just when we think this thing is done and dusted. Yeah. It was a recording of a meeting from 2013 of Bombers chairman Paul Little, James Hird, Mark Thompson, and footy manager at the time, Danny Cochrane, talking about their fury.
Yes.
And that they'd been betrayed by the AFL and its Deputy Chief, Gillon McLaughlin, who's Deputy Chief at the time, now the Chief. Have you listened to this tape?
Bits of it. I haven't listened to the whole 18 minutes.
I listened to the whole thing, and I want my money back. I want my life back.
Well, I thought it was a pretty good podcast, and I was waiting for episode 2. but was it leaked? Was it the Russians?
Well, it was leaked as in someone gave it to their... someone's record... I can't remember that legally you're not technically really allowed to tape people without their permission.
No.
So there's probably like a breach there, but then also giving it to the paper. The thing that strikes me about this is it's an attempt once again, this belief that Essendon were hard done by as part of some sort of conspiracy, and this was meant to show this tape that the AFL had gone back on their word. Now, it has no proof of that, actually. It's got the view that the Essendon people thought AFL went back on their word. I'm not naive enough to believe that the AFL couldn't go back on their word if it suited them.
Yeah.
They could. But there's no proof in this tape that they did. There's a proof that there could have been a misunderstanding of what the promises that were made between them all or whatever. And the tape doesn't reveal anything new.
Nothing new. And the curious thing is, when I first saw and heard about it, when it was splashed across the Herald Sun, I thought, gee, who recorded it out of those 4? And you think it's got to be one of those 4.
Well, a few people are saying Bomber Thompson, but who knows?
And then I was thinking, and how did they leak it to the paper? But then the paper actually made the point that all 4 of those gentlemen had made it, have okayed the Herald Sun to running it. So there was obviously the agenda was there, the 4 of them thinking it was going to, I don't know, help
this is what I don't get
in the long run.
The AFL conspiracy theory that the AFL is somehow after Essendon. Right? Now, you think about it. If you believe the conspiracy theories, they believe both that Demetrio tipped off Essendon, which they keep bringing up, but you go, well, hang on, that's a helping Essendon out attempt, even though if he did actually do that, which he denies, Demetrio tipped Essendon off that the probe was coming.
They would have found out soon enough anyway.
I know, but that's him trying to help them, give them a heads up to something's coming down the pipeline. Then secondly, they heard the AFL tribunal found the players not guilty. Hird was allowed to return as a coach and only got fired because of result on the field. And Essendon fired him, not the AFL. So this idea that he wasn't allowed back in the game, he came back in the game. He came back in the game for a year.
It was just
so this whole idea that the AFL's been out to get him. I mean, you could make a very strong argument. The reverse is true. The AFL were
trying to help them,
trying to
help mitigate the whole thing.
And they've never fully opened up. AFL have never, all their words, have basically gone out of their way to basically not say these players are drug cheats, like the players themselves. They talk about poor governance, but the AFL have said things like, Job's enhanced the Brownlow medal by giving it back. They've said all these players have been through, terrible. They just feel sorry for the players. So the idea that the AFL... So the thing is here, and it's part of also this campaign to get a Senate inquiry into the... What's that going to find out? The most it's going to find out...
When was the last time a government inquiry?
Senate inquiry too. But the most that's going to find out, if of all the conspiracies out there, the most it might find out is the AFL... tipped off Essendon. Yep. Now, I don't know if that's even true, but let's say
by now it doesn't even matter.
So that it would find out that if that's actually even true, it might find that out, and it might find out that the AFL in the early stages tried to meddle and get deals done and stuff like that. Okay. So let's say, and even the AFL said we did try and get deals, we did try and get assurances from Asada, and we did try and get clarity and all that, and we couldn't actually come through on them. But let's say it finds all that out and has a few emails showing that, they didn't love X or Y, Essendon, which we already know. Right? none of that produces the evidence that clears the players. None of it produces the smoking gun that makes the
doesn't change
there's no
things
outcome
one
here
iota.
That's the thing. Now, the thing that really got to me about this, and I actually didn't tweet about this at all, and I was reluctant to put it on the podcast run sheet because it's been done to death, and I know people are sick about it, and I'm sick of it too. Like this was interesting for a period, but it's kind of got to the point where these people who leaked it, right, or the thing that I don't get is this was the morning after the season launch of the Essendon Football Club.
Yeah.
And the Essendon Football Club, and to their credit, not everyone, I don't hate the Essendon Football Club. I think they were terribly governed for a while and did some terrible things and were boneheaded in how they dealt with it. That's my view of them. But I could also point to Melbourne doing that. Like Melbourne were terribly. I know what it feels like to be sort of
a club that's badly
that
run.
Is held hostage as a fan to a club of people running it who don't know what they're doing and get you into all sorts of trouble. I know that feeling. So here's Essendon, and I actually think Xavier Campbell, to his credit, has been walking a very fine line between keeping everyone on side who thinks Essendon have been hard done by, but also trying to move past it and they've put in an enormous amount of work, and I don't think they've got everything right. I thought the comeback story thing is a bit of the tone's wrong on that and stuff because come back from shooting yourself in the foot, but at least they're trying to just get it back onto being a football club.
Yep.
And this these people are not friends of the Essendon Football Club in doing it. I mean,
was so selfish and self-centered.
That's what I mean, they had this tape since 2013, whoever recorded it. So the idea that and I
don't reckon one of them suddenly just rang and said, hey, guess what I just found on my phone?
If you believe
I thought I deleted it.
If you believe it's a coincidence that they did it the morning after the Essendon launch, I mean, really, that to me is really when you start to go, all right, the fight's been had.
Yeah.
You lost.
Yeah.
You might even be unhappy about it. You might even think it was completely unfair. Fine. But now the club's like, let's get together. We've got young kids. We're trying to make this a place where the young parents of kids and all that are happy for their people to come here, happy for, and you're just bringing this up again. And the Senate inquiry is going to do the same thing. It just keeps Essendon from being able to move forward. And as a footy fan, you just want to get I'd like Essendon just to be back to being a footy club. Yeah. And I know that Essendon fans, a lot of them I talk to, like that as well. And the reaction to this tape by most people is, so what?
Yeah. I reckon by the start of the footy season, this tape thing will be forgotten and hopefully
they're saying there's going to be more. And I'm like, really, guys? Like, unless you've got a smoking gun. And what's the worst it's going to say? That Gillen and Demetrio play really hardball. Well, no, that's what the AFL's played hardball since. I mean, the VFL used to play hardball. The AFL that is all they play tough at the top. I'm not even saying that's always okay, but it's not. They're not going to show any.
No surprise.
No.
Hey, what if they had? I mean, this Senate inquiry. The only good thing that I could imagine that would come out of the what if they had a Senate inquiry and they decided that maybe Job should get his Brownlow back again. And then they have to get Mitchell and Cochin to return theirs.
But the only reason to have any reheating of the souffle of this is if someone produces some level of evidence that unequivocally proves something substantive. So this just
proves they're either guilty or not.
This tape, there was a few people I saw, and I think one of the senators came out, I forget which one it was, and said, this tape proves there needs to be inquiry. And I'm like, no, it doesn't.
No.
There's nothing in this tape.
This tape proves that there's four blokes who are really paranoid and pissed off.
Yeah. And the AFL say, well, we thought they went back on their word on things, and we both. And you go, it's he said, she said. There's no the spreadsheet's not been found, or there hasn't been like proof that the players never took any. There's we're still exactly where we are.
Well, on Saturday, I'm sure you read it. Caroline Wilson wrote a piece in The Age.
Yeah.
That was one of your great drive-by shootings, that article.
I did. It
was like she hung out the window with a machine gun, and every person that she was aimed at copped a bullet right between the eyes, including those four blokes who leaked the tape. And the only one who didn't get shot in her article was, somewhat ironically, was Stephen Dank.
He's learned to avoid those sort of things. Anyway, there's enough about that. I'm sick of it, but it does worry me that that's going to keep going. And I'm like, I do actually feel for the Essendon supporters who I talk to who are like, even the ones that believe Heard and that were fairly innocent are like, but let's get on with the footy. Like, they got some good players. I mean, that Darcy Parish, He's going to be a gun. They got some really
and they didn't play
good talent. McGrath looked good.
Yeah, I think Heppel didn't play yesterday, and Zaharakis, Merritt, they didn't play.
Yeah.
They got something to look forward to, Essendon. I reckon they're going to be a bit up and down this year purely because, these dozen or so players didn't play.
Yeah, you don't know where they're going. Yeah.
But, they're certainly back in town as a footy club.
Now, this is a real scandal. This is bigger than the Essendon football scandal.
Let's hope this drags on for 4 or 5 years, this story.
So Joel Selwood was caught speeding this week. He was going 127k in a 100 zone.
Yeah.
He's a Grand Prix ambassador, so you can argue the thing about this is when he got caught, I went online and I literally on Twitter had about 20 people messaging me or saying all variants of duck jokes.
Yes, that was the first.
And then I look on Twitter and there's like 1,000 of them, and it was just like. Which some of them were still funny. Like that's the thing we always talk about with the Richmond Knight jokes, right? Most of the time when you read one, you go, oh yeah. But occasionally,
it still makes you laugh.
And so occasionally, someone will find a new variant on the Melbourne snow joke, and it's actually funny, But often it's not. So there was a couple of the ducking ones.
There was a couple because I thought the same thing.
But there were some that really stretched. They like all the easy ones had been taken, so people were going like. Oh, yeah, he was ducking down so the camera didn't catch you. And you go, hang on.
He ducked his head under the dashboard as the speed camera went off.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.
So there's a lot of that. But
the Grand Prix ambassador was better.
Oh, it's true. Well, also, it's the bravest speeding fine ever. So brave. That's the thing with Selwood. You've got to say how brave he is.
I just can't wait for his brother Scott to get pulled over for speeding. That'll be even more courageous.
Well, I think someone did say, can't he give the points to one of the lesser Selwoods? And I thought that was a good game. Now, the other thing is he'd earlier been on the at the local high school in an education seminar.
Oh, boy, he wasn't. Was he teaching them,
Teaching them road safety. No, I don't know what he was doing there.
Hector the road safety cat.
He was overtaking a van or a truck or something. Always, you got to be careful.
Didn't I read somewhere that he had some teammates in his car with him?
Yeah, like 3 teammates or something.
Like just off to a party or the drive-in, he probably had Tom Hawkins in the boot. Get in for nothing.
Andrew Tonkin wrote in, and I think this is spot on. What will be the texture of the lettuce leaf that Joel Selwood is flogged by the Geelong leadership group this week? He will get very light.
What's he supposed to do? Apart from the fact that he is the Geelong leadership group, what are they going to say, Sorry,
slow down.
Joel,
he's lost his licence for a month.
A month. We won't even take him to the start of the footy season. And you reckon, he's not going to be able to get a lift from his house in Geelong to Cardinia Park?
Well, Tyler Thompson wrote in, this is an important point, is Selwood a shoo-in for the Brownlow now with his new fitness regime of riding his bike to training and games?
Well, he always gives it a bit of a shake. It might get him up from second. He usually comes second.
Well, I heard that Dangerfield was in the car in front of him and managed to not get caught. Just that little bit better. Yeah. Anyway, well, obviously Joel Selwood is a menace to society, and
I should throw away the key.
They should.
Yeah.
On the other hand, people right. This is victim of the nanny state, revenue raising. That was the other thing I read too. So there was a whole thing.
There was so much predictable about this on Twitter.
127 though in 100 zone. That is a fair bit over. That's not.
Well, especially since he was probably going 131, and they always take a few off.
Yeah, that's right. So like that's.
But he was on the Geelong freeway, wasn't he? There should be a Senate inquiry as to how you're able to go that fast on the Geelong road.
Well, in that it's not
peak hour.
I don't think it was in peak hour.
No,
that was the problem.
Yeah.
Congestion is road safety's friend. That's what I always say. Now, Serge, you were outraged by this week.
Well, I was to a point.
Hang on, I'm trying to build up the excitement.
Until I tried to think of something else to go with, something funny to say about it.
But the umpires and the Umpires Association or Union of Umpires Which the problem being the umpires union is you go, well, we'll strike. Everyone goes, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Or we should be paid more. Everyone goes, nah.
No.
Like, you don't have a lot of support.
It's the lamest sort of union.
It's up there with parking inspectors. Like the parking inspectors say, we're going to go and strike to get public sympathy for us. Everyone's like, terrific.
I got bashed last week and spat on. You probably asked for it.
And hello, Serge. I might just give out your license plate now so that parking inspectors can get their own back on you for the next. Now, the AFL Umpires Union, they want to get rid of the traditional centre bounce.
Yes.
And
because, they've got rid of the bounce around the ground now, but the start of the quarter bounce and after the goal bounce. Normally. Yeah.
Now, they're saying it's because of basically back and shoulder injuries from having to practice it and do it, and it ends up in a lot of injuries. And I thought...
nanny state.
I was about to say, is that the softest argument? I reckon it's part of their EBA bargaining negotiations. This is, if anything, this is an ambit claim. Yes. Pay us more or get rid of the bounce. Don't you think?
No question. No question. Is this going to the Fair Work Commission or
it's going to go to this needs a Senate inquiry?
The High Court.
It's going to go to the Swiss High Court. It's going to go all the way. It's over there with the same lawyers that got Everson and all that advice. Do you care about the bounce going? Look, you said, they're getting rid of the bounce, but
look, and the more I thought about it, I thought, I don't really care. There is that sort of that sentiment that it is a traditional part of our Indigenous game, and there's no other sport in the world that bounces a ball like this to start a match, especially a ball that is so unpredictable in its bounceability. It's not like bouncing a soccer ball that will go straight up.
No.
And so there is that. But then on the other hand, there is something really annoying about that. You're ready for the first bounce of the game and the crowd's roaring and the two ruckmen go back.
One of the 50s.
And then it goes back and it's gone, come back to me, fellas, I'll toss it up. Get it together. So I don't think the game would lose anything much if they did abolish the bounce. Nobody would care.
But I'm not big on giving umpires what they want either, so I'm torn on this.
I'd actually reintroduce it around the ground just to annoy them.
That's what the AFL should come back in their ambit claim.
Yeah, okay. No, we're not going to abolish it at the centre bounce. In fact, you can do it at every stoppage. Smart ass.
They should just sign them up for, if they're back and shoulder, they're having issues with it, they should just tell them about the yoga classes they're going to have at Etihad Stadium. And say, get down to them.
Yeah,
the yoga classes are reinvigorating the... Have you signed up to the yoga classes?
I haven't. I didn't realise that...
At the new Etihad Stadium?
I didn't realise that you could get on board just yet. But don't worry, I'll be there.
I like that. I didn't realise. I'm right on it. Now, you watch any of the JLT series, which we still haven't figured out what they stand for? Just like training.
I had 3 blokes say to me yesterday, you know, Serge, have you worked out what JLT stands for? I said, no, I honestly still don't know.
Just like training. We got told by one of our listeners last week.
Now, your question, did I watch much of... I watched bits of the games this weekend, but didn't see, whole matches. I did see the entire second half of the Melbourne Carlton game, though.
Yeah.
And it was as a Melbourne sport, it was almost disconcerting to see them just, at times, just toying with their opposition and looking like a powerful side who could go places. I can't still quite get my head around it. It was only Carlton, mind you.
Carlton were pretty bad.
And I had a mate...
Carlton gave up, like they were like standing around.
I had a mate who actually went out to Casey Fields to watch this game, and he said, this is fantastic. There's Carlton supporters going home at half-time.
From Casey too.
Because it's a fair drive from Casey.
Well, they had the double header. They had the AFL women's.
Yeah, on first, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because last week was the other way around.
I headed out there, and it's great, the AFL women's, because I took a bunch of young girls out there to get them in it, and their parents were not happy because I hadn't asked permission.
I was about to say, you were allowed to do that?
No, apparently people frown on that. I'm trying to get them into the footy.
Without anyone checking?
They go, no, take your own. I was like, oh, okay.
See. You'll end up on a register somewhere.
That's right. Some of the stuff in the JLT that was worth noting for people who didn't watch much of it is Fife was back.
I saw none of that game. How did he play? Played well, did he?
Yeah, he was good. He's back. Sam Mitchell was playing for the Eagles, and he just was as good as ever.
Yeah.
I still
Did
think
he need a few blokes? Or?
Yeah, you need a bunch of blokes and pretending to inject something.
Yeah, so it's back to
the thing about it is, you look at that and the way he played on the weekend, and once again, this is all pre-season, but he just looked like he is a huge get for the Eagles. And I just look over at Hawthorn, and you go, that's a huge loss.
He is.
Him and Mitchell, but him and Lewis. But Mitchell is the lot. I think Mitchell is
as much as we're both Melbourne supporters and we're delighted to have Jordan Lewis here, I reckon Mitchell is a bigger loss to Hawthorn than Lewis. I mean, he starts everything.
I mean, look, the other thing out of it is Jaeger O'Meara was good for Hawthorn, very good at points. Half. But, I mean, there's still the question mark over him of,
will he see out the season?
Will he see out the season up? Now, I hope he does, because he's a great player.
Yeah, you don't want to see
but Sam Mitchell just is so creative and starts so much for everyone. Arden Street sold out. Did you see that as well?
What's that, 6,000-7,000 people?
I think it was like 600 people. No, it did. It was good. It was good for North. And North have been playing some good footy.
I haven't been to...
Peaking when it matters.
Yeah. I haven't been to any of these games at the old grounds, but I reckon it would just be fabulous seeing a proper AFL game between the two teams at one of these old grounds. I'd love to have a windy game at Windy Hill.
Yeah, but the thing is...
The Lakeside Oval.
And then you realise, because I've been out to the Whitten Oval.
Yeah.
And you realise that all the mod cons of how soft we've become, because you suddenly
you quite get used to it,
you can't get this out at Casey, it's porta potties, and you're like, it's standing all day. We're not built for it. We're soft now. I used to be able to do that in the outer, and now it's like,
that's true. I guess the romance of playing at Windy Hill would wear off pretty damn
people
quickly.
like it, but if you were playing there every week, it wouldn't.
No, you wouldn't want to do that.
What I love is the AFL are embracing this romance. They were the ones that completely destroyed these suburban grounds. They made a decision in the 80s to stop funding the clubs that had them that they didn't want anymore. So, they're kind of all pretending it's this great thing.
Oh, yeah, they're the ones who put it to bed. It's like the Lakeside Oval. Now, these days it's used, they use it for athletics the other week, and they've used it for soccer.
It's a great oval.
For years. But before the soccer guys took it over, 10, 12 years ago, you'd walk past, if you walk around Albert Park Lake, and you'd see where the goal square was, there'd just be big clumps of weeds.
Yeah.
And there'd be the press box, the windows were broken, and you just thought, gee, it's a shame. It's a real shame what's happened there. But now, of course, it's, as you say, the AFL are making themselves look good by going back to some of these suburban grounds.
Going back to the roots.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing of, it's the hipster thing of going back to things that were difficult and harder, and because you don't have to do it regularly, pretending they're great. But if you had to do them all the time and didn't have the other new stuff, they'd be whinging
Next
like crazy.
They'll be serving beer in jars.
Well, they are doing sushi and salad, so that's, so that was pretty exciting. Tom Nelligan wrote in, seeing as Melbourne hasn't lost a pre-season game in 2 years, how do we get the pre-season to be the main competition? I think there's North this year are probably thinking that. There's a few that...
Melbourne and North are the two obvious
That's the worst thing about pre-season
juggernauts.
Is even you keep saying one part of your brain's going, it's just pre-season. The other part of your brain's going, they look pretty good. And then you realise, well, half these teams aren't even trying.
Yeah, and half the players in this team by round one will be back in the
it's like we
twos.
beat the Bulldogs, but Bulldogs had about 5 of their top players not playing. So, you can get a bit excited, but...
Yeah, we only beat them by a goal.
And I think North and Melbourne are both taking it very seriously.
They're playing pretty much full strength sides.
So it's no wonder they're winning, fairly regularly.
Although you did make the point on the weekend, I think, on Twitter, that why you can't extrapolate too much out of these practice matches.
Yeah.
Carlton's season is officially gone.
They're
over. Yeah.
They did. What they looked bad on the weekend is a few points where they were just standing there, literally, witches at.
They
They were
had no
just
idea.
they just gave, I mean, look, I'd give up if I had to go out to Casey. But anyway, Edna Merkel, who's a long-term listener and 91 years old
and
up in Queensland.
Name, Edna.
Huge fan up in Queensland there. She's written in, if we have super goals in the pre-season comp, why don't we have super points?
That's a new one. That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Don't give the AFL ideas, Edna.
Yeah, no, don't. No, that would mean extra adjudication required by the umpires, and it would just be too hard. How would they signal that? Just one arm straight up, like a Hitler salute, like a Nazi salute.
They bring it in, and after one round of it, they go, "Oh, we better actually."
For that reason alone, they should bring it in just to see. With a right-handed Nazi salute for a super point.
It's a Nazi from outside 50. And it misses for a Nazi.
And you know, one of those Nazi armbands looks so good on a goal umpire's jacket too.
Oh yeah, goes so well. Don't give them ideas about changing complex scoring systems because they will come up with it. Talking of complex and over-engineering things, we've talked before about this concept of AFLX, which is this, I think it's like 8-a-side or 7-a-side played on a soccer field instead of an oval. But it's AFL. But after goals, it's just a kick in. It's no longer, you don't have to go back for bounce. The idea is it's short, sharp, fast game. Don't need heaps of players. Now they've said that one of the reasons behind this is it's trying to push into overseas markets where they don't necessarily have footy ovals.
And where there's soccer ovals and American football ovals that are 100 metres long and they're rectangular.
So now you and I have been sceptical of this AFLX thing, to say the least.
I'm sceptical of any sport that just adds an X to its name and suddenly you think that's going to make it better.
Yeah, cool. Could call you Sergio X.
Yeah, it sounds like a bad rapper, you know. It's like they have the X Games.
We'll relaunch you. I'm all for it. Let's do it. New look, new sound.
Yeah, bit of gold chains, cap on backwards.
Now, you and I have been sceptical, but very close friend of the show, David Koch.
Yeah, Kochie.
Has come out and thrown his weight behind it, which, is another nail in the coffin of AFL.
In a media sense, yeah.
And he said that it was going to help Port Adelaide's push into China, this version of the game.
That phrase alone, Port Adelaide's push into China.
Is they complaining that
China just waiting for this Port Adelaide push?
They are just desperate. Yeah. What I love is how much it's looking like the Suns, because they're going to wear their red and yellow top, which looks like the Chinese colours. I'd laugh if Port Adelaide end up the second most popular team in China, and it opens up. The Suns do half the work when it opens up for the Suns. I desperately. The only reason I want China to work is for the Suns to dominate and Port Adelaide to be left in the. I mean. Anyway,
you saw that promotional photo they did the other day
on the smog.
Yeah, Port Adelaide were really upset that the panda was wearing the Gold Coast
as well.
Jumper. But the smog
and the koala was in the Port Adelaide.
Yeah, so
these were not real pandas and koalas. We should tell our listeners if they didn't see the photo. The photo was of a mascot panda and a mascot koala, and the koala was in the port top. The Suns, the panda was in the Gold Coast Suns, but not the away one that Kochie's trying to get them to wear. The white one, it was the red and the yellow. They know what they're doing, the Gold Coast Suns. They're saying, we didn't have an agreement with you on the top.
No.
Bad luck.
Was there a toss of the coin on who gets the panda or the koala?
And in the background, the smog, because it was in China, the smog was insane. And how the AFL players are going to... Now, people pointed out to me and said, Beijing, the smog was fine. They ran marathons in that. But for Beijing Olympics. But the Beijing Olympics, the Chinese shut down manufacturing for 2 weeks.
Yes.
Like even in the lead up and during it.
Stop the cars.
They ban cars.
You can do that in a totalitarian.
Yeah, you can do that. So that's what they did. Yeah. They are not going to do that for this game.
No, despite Port Adelaide's push into China.
Despite the threat of us sending Kochie over there.
And see, the ground that they're playing on, according to Kochie, is an old golf driving range.
I read this. This is bearing the lead. I was reading this and they were talking about this.
That's the best bit.
He said you can't find big grass areas in China. And so it's an old golf driving range. How,
I just want
halfway through the game, you're like, 4.
Yeah, I just want to see the opening bounce or throw up, whichever how that works out. And will there be a bloke driving a golf buggy with covered in chicken wire right across the...
I would love if it's... I suppose it's at least good to know that it's an old golf driving range, not a current one. Although that would make for an exciting... Yeah. That's your AFLX right there.
There you go.
Players getting golf balls pinged at them.
$10 for a bucket of balls.
I'm aiming for Chad Wingard. Oh, you missed.
You go to the bar, have 6 pots, thanks. You get 6 buckets of balls.
Oh, so anyway, that's going to be interesting.
AFLX, yes. Watch for it.
It's super exciting. And he even says, that AFLX has been built because over in China they're building all these soccer stadiums.
Yeah.
Which tends to say to me, they're not looking, they're kind of getting into soccer.
Oh, I was about to say, they're building all those soccer stadiums.
Soccer/football, depending. You get in trouble for saying the wrong term these days.
No, you do. So it's either soccer/football/AFLX. They're not.
My favourite thing about blokes that get upset about whether they call it soccer or football.
Yeah.
Right. And I know people say all the reasons why. I've read many of the arguments of why it should be called football, not soccer, and vice versa. Right?
Yeah.
But what I love about it is blokes arguing about this and getting really upset about it. Most blokes never learn the difference between a dress and a skirt, which are actually different things.
There's a difference?
Yeah, exactly. But this we go, and so people say to their wife or girlfriend, they go, "Oh, nice dress," and there's a skirt, and they go, "Whatever." Yeah. Why, which are actually different things. But calling something soccer and football, we all know what you mean, doesn't it? They are the same thing, and people get really upset about it.
I know. And it's usually soccer fans who get really upset.
Oh, but football fans then turn around AFL fans and go, "Oh, we're football." And I'm like, who cares? As long as I know what you're talking about, I couldn't care less. Yeah. I couldn't be less interested.
As long as there's flares involved.
That's which one's the one with the flares?
Yeah, is that soccer or football?
And what's the one with the terrible drug cases? That's AFL.
That's AFL.
What's the one that's going to be huge in China?
AFLX. And what's the one where players dive?
All of them. That's the thing. It's just incentive setting with players. They'll get away with anything. Yeah. You
can point your finger
at it. They dive in soccer. They duck in AFL.
That's right.
That's all the difference.
The only thing you need to know.
Yeah. Now, you and I have been impressed with the integrity of horse racing for a long time.
Oh, if there's a sport in the world that can be described as squeaky clean, yeah, it's horse racing.
A lot of other sports could really, I
could learn from horse racing.
Sure could. Now, one thing I think is...
Because I know that the whip has been abolished in sports like wrestling and things like
AFL
that around the world.
Soccer.
AFL, soccer. There's no whipping in soccer
anymore.
There's
a lot of sports I'd like to see the whip brought back into. But so in horse racing, the former boss of Racing Victoria, whose name is David Moody, well-known guy, owns a lot of horses.
No relation to Peter Moody.
No, different spelling. MOODIE. And the other one is...
now, he was the boss of... Yeah.
He was the head of Racing Victoria. Now, he wants his names cleared because there was a inquiry by the Sports Integrity Commissioner, Sal Perno, busiest job in the world.
Oh, yeah.
In horse racing's Integrity Commissioner. He wants his name because he said that it was found this inquiry that he leaked sensitive details about a cobalt inquiry, one of the many going on. Now, he's saying that he's launched legal action because he's saying that this Sal Perno, the Integrity Commission's report, was a flawed investigation set up to reach preset conclusions. So they're out to get him.
So it sounds like a government inquiry.
That's a lot of in sport investigations set up to get people. Now, he found, the Integrity Commissioner found in December that Mr. Moody had told friend and trainer Peter Moody, no relation,
right,
of a cobalt probe into fellow trainers Danny O'Brien and Mark Kavanagh, potentially blowing the investigation. He ruled Mr. Moody had misled Racing Victoria, which is the head of he was the head of, Integrity Council over what he said to Mr. Moody. In a Supreme Court writ, Mr. Moody is seeking to have the findings overturned and an order stating Mr. Perner failed to act fairly. Now, he also accuses
this whole thing
Mr.
is just
Perner
doing my head in, I've got
of
to say.
unfairness and ignoring evidence he gave under oath. And he agreed to... Now, Moody is no longer there to Victorian Racing. He agreed to leave his position with dignity, says here, after the board considered the report was flawed and no punishment was due.
So I'm just getting my head around this.
How incestuous is all this?
So they've had an inquiry into the head of Racing Victoria.
Well, they had a Colbot inquiry going into True Trainers.
He supposedly
as head of Racing
something.
Victoria, he knew about the inquiry. He then tells one trainer
who
about the two being investigated.
The possible targets
and that
of this
information
investigation
being out there is a leak that is
so now
damaging. So then that gets found out, allegedly. He gets charged by the Racing Integrity Commissioner that he leaked that information.
For him.
Also, I think it's a bit more independent than that, but in that regard. But then he reports to the board that this guy leaked it, and the board goes, well, no, we think it's a bit unfair and let him go with... we still get rid of him, but let him go with dignity.
Do it with dignity.
And they decided not to do that. Now, Mr. Perner put out a press statement affirming his findings. And he said it was a long investigation that included interviews with 30 more people. He said Mr. Moody wasn't the original source of the leak, but he could have compromised the Cobalt investigation. So what's interesting here is, one, I find a few things interesting. It just shows, like, one, you've got the head of Racing Victoria, and I know this goes with a lot of people who are on the boards of these things. They're all either related or own racehorses in their own. It's a bit like if... and I know there's been accusation of that, but it's a bit like if Gillan McLaughlin was also almost chair of one of the clubs or something. Which is what used to...
It's how the AFL used to be run.
And it's not a very independent process. Like, even if he's completely innocent in this and the Racing Integrity Commission was just out to get him.
This is one of the inherent problems with horse racing, as you said. I mean, every single person involved and is heavily involved, whether it's as a trainer, as an owner. I mean, even jockeys are on boards. And then you have the different racing clubs who are all fighting for their own little piece of turf, like Flemington, doesn't do any favours for Caulfield, and Caulfield doesn't like Moonee Valley. And, there's this whole thing that everyone is just in it for their own thing. So
but how can you...
there is no independence whatsoever.
I can't get my head around, like, even if he hadn't done anything wrong here, that he can own horse races and oversee the industry.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally.
I mean, I might be... People will say, oh, you're just naive, that's a common thing. But even if it is common, I just think, well, how can you do that? How can you be impartial when you've got vested interests in certain things working?
And you've got to remember, this whole Cobalt thing pretty much cost, leading trainers like Moody and Kavanagh their careers,
Yeah.
And,
And as we've learned, they're not the only things horses are on. They're on pretty much every drug under the sun.
Yes.
Someone sent me one this week. I couldn't find it originally, but a greyhound
Greyhounds are on the ice now.
Was on ice too. Greyhounds look like they're on ice. They're so skinny to start with.
This wasn't the same greyhound that got a bit of a touch-up going into the starting box.
That's what drove him to ice.
I was about to say, what a good night he's had. He had a couple of lines and a bit of a handy.
Now, Sergio, I read this thing this week, and I thought this is going to blow Sergio Paradise's brain.
It did. I thought...
For those that don't know, and some people might know this or not, there's a lot of people would know this, but not everyone. Extremely popular video game, FIFA 17, which is soccer / football. And you just can play on your PlayStation.
Don't worry, I'm well aware of FIFA 17.
Yeah, so for people that don't know that, though, that's what it is. It's a computer
NBA
game
2K17 is the basketball
computer
one. Massive
game of soccer, and it's on PlayStation, it's on Xbox, things like that.
Yeah.
And massive following, hugely popular. Now, a lot of people, there's competitions globally for the best players and playing this, and, people devote an enormous amount of time, and there's a lot of money around it. But it's now over in, I think, the UK, BT Sport have announced they're going to broadcast on television.
Right. This is what I couldn't get my head around.
EA FIFA majors across the that have been playing. So this is people playing on the Xbox and the PlayStation against each other. The soccer game
On the internet, yeah.
on video,
Yeah.
and they're going to broadcast the matches on TV.
Right. So
Is this the end of civilization?
it could well be the end of sport. I mean,
If you told your dad this back in the day, that this is where we'd get to, what would be the reaction?
Look, my two boys play NBA 2K17 on the Xbox against kids from America at the same time. My dad can't get his head around that, let alone the fact that they might
show it on television.
So are they gonna create stars of the
people playing it,
which inevitably will either be kids or AFL footballers, because what they're like on the Xbox.
It's only a matter of time before a promising young soccer player says, "I'm giving up soccer to play FIFA because there's more money in it." But I just find that amazing, because to me, I've played FIFA many times. I like computer games, and so I can understand the fun of playing other people. But the idea of sitting down watching other people play it.
Yeah.
On television.
Although, having said that, I know not necessarily the FIFA, but over in the States, it's big business to have like a convention of video games where leading players from around the world go there, and people sit in grandstands
and
watch them play on giant screens.
This is when I realise I'm getting old. As you're getting older, you start to things happen where you realise I'm not in touch with youth culture anymore. As much as I try to be, can't try and stay young and across what the young people out there are into. There are certain things that
your Nirvana t-shirt's not going to cover it anymore.
They start jarring with you because they start doing certain things and you go, sorry, I just cannot.
No, can't get my head around that.
I cannot support this.
No.
So, I mean, there's only a matter of time before that starts happening here. I mean, what's the point of sports anymore?
Well, I was just about to say.
They look pretty realistic these days.
Oh, they do. And you can even put yourself in there. You can scan your own face and play yourself. I don't know why you'd want to scan your own face, mind you. But you can. I know in the basketball one, you can make yourself 6'8" and black, but still have your own face.
Well, that's your dream come true.
Yeah, that's Snapchat to me.
Oh, it's weird, but the world is turning out to be a very weird place these days. Anyway, well, some people will like it.
Keep an eye out for that one.
Only a matter of time before you'll be telling me you were watching that all weekend.
Foxtel will have it'll be part of their sports package. There'll be a dedicated channel, so you can sit at home with your remote and watch on your own TV kids playing against other kids.
The other room. You get kids from the other room
on this screen. It's just all too hard.
What happened to young kids just going out and getting drunk?
Well,
like the good old days.
Yeah. I mean,
all this time practicing on the computer when they could be out getting in trouble.
Fighting in nightclubs. It still occurs.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Now, I've long believed that the most silliest organisation in the history of time,
right? That's a fair statement.
Is the AFL Tribunal?
Yes.
And we've often laughed at some of their decisions and their inconsistency. But I found a new clubhouse leader. This week, and I sent this to you last night. And you did laugh when I sent this to you. The NBL Tribunal,
the National Basketball League.
Yeah, and they're known just as much from people in the know of NBL basketball for being as wildly inconsistent as the AFL, if not more
worse.
So, which is a fair effort. Like, good on them.
Inconsistent, but you
don't get there. You've got to work at getting that inconsistent. You can't just be that inconsistent. Yeah. So, well done to them. Now, they had a decision this week that was so weird. And
we're talking, this was in the finals.
Yeah,
of
the finals.
The NBL finals.
One of them, a guy called Matt Knight, he whacked another player, Travis Trice,
from the Cairns Taipans. I saw this.
Yeah,
it was your little.
Take us through what he actually did.
Well, okay, there was a bit of a, not even an altercation. One of the players scored, and there was a bit of trash talk under the basket and a bit of a push, and then a little quick open-handed slap.
To the face.
Yes. Hodgie style, Luke Hodge style. and it was completely harmless.
Right.
I can't remember whether it was called a technical foul or a personal foul in the court.
Yeah.
But that's what it should have been.
But he didn't KO someone or something. But he shouldn't have.
It'd be
not
like
the face, as we always say when we're fighting.
Yeah, but it'd be like in AFL terms, if say a bit of push and shove, Hodgie's giving somebody a whack across face with an open hand, you go 50 metres.
Yeah.
50 metres. But
so Knight, who was the guy that whacked him, he pleaded guilty. So he's not even saying he didn't, and he was found guilty, and he was suspended for 2 games. Right,
which I thought was harsh to start.
So that was all done. Then it got referred, and basically the review panel looked at it, and they thought the penalty was too harsh, and they referred it to the independent tribunal.
The independent tribunal's got to be the busiest tribunal in the world.
So that got sent there, and they agreed that it was too harsh, and they put it back to being $1,000 fine. So you would think, sort of sanity prevails, I guess, but it's a big drop from 2 weeks suspension back to $1,000 fine. But they then added that Knight has to send Trice a written apology. Asking an athlete to write something is kind of unfair.
A written apology to a player. Now, this just smacks of basketball history in American high schools.
It is amazing. It's a bit like the homework gate in cricket.
Yeah.
I would love if this actually. I would actually love if this took off.
Yeah.
I'd love to see this and it had to go in the paper. So we actually got to read these apology letters.
No. This is what they do. They put the written apology up on the big screen at the MCG when they have the NBA game there next year.
But can you imagine, what's he going to... Sorry for slightly slapping you with an open hand. I feel really bad about it.
Does he call him Dear Travis or Dear Mr. Trice?
Dear Mr. Trice. Regarding our altercation of the 3rd of February 2017.
Yes.
Henceforth referred to as the incident. I was going to say that you know who this really hurts? The PR person at the club, because they're going to have to sit down and write this apology.
Or he'll do just through because of practice. Dear Travis, if anyone was offended by my actions,
maybe you and I could come up with a template that players could use in these situations.
I think it would be very useful. And it'd be one that could be used
tick the checkbox
across all sports. All sports
just
it could be.
Just tick the checkbox of what you did and say out of 1 to 10, how sorry am I?
Open-handed slap, king hit, urinating on shop window. Any kind of transgression, we'll cover it. We'll work on that after the show.
That is so silly, that idea. I just love that so much. That is. Imagine that. Imagine some of the AFL incidences that, like when Lockett ran out on Peter Kate, the apology note.
Put his entire nose into
the back of his head.
Yeah.
Imagine the apology note. Sorry for almost killing you.
Yeah. Get stuffed, plugger. Yeah.
Damien Paul Gibson, and we're now on questions without notice, our last section. Damien Paul Gibson wrote in, does Fox Footy provide a translation service for Tony Shaw?
I've wondered that. When you hit that little red I, or the little I button on your Foxtel remote, sometimes it'll go straight to a translation.
So my favourite is when they had press read for Ed when Melbourne beat Collingwood, and the last quarter was just Ed fuming, and the other commentators trying to be a bit jovial, and Ed just giving them nothing.
Zip, yeah.
Well worth watching again.
So Damien is getting the point he's trying to make is Tony Shaw's really hard to listen to and understand.
No, he's not going to get a lot of arguments from many people.
And Shawry, let's be honest, he doesn't get the A-grade games either, Shawry.
No.
Never has, never will.
Ronan wrote in, what word or phrase beloved by AFL pundits does not mean what they think it means? Now, I had to think about this.
Yeah.
The one they always use, not all of them, but fairly often, is... They'll say, so when someone handballs the ball onto the ground to get away from a tackler to go, and they call it a submarine hand pass. I'm always like, and I've heard it referred to as an underground hand pass before too.
Yeah.
So I've had both used. Well, one goes under the water.
Yeah,
So
submarine.
technically you're nowhere near what that actually was.
And underground is just patently wrong.
Just
obviously.
wrong.
And it's a bit like that. I mean, you don't hear it very often these days, but the low bullet pass, the daisy cutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do love that when they call it a submarine handball, because that is...
What about the hospital hand pass? Is that...
Has anyone ever been sent to the hospital for it? I suppose they have. There is a danger. That one at least makes a little bit of...
a bit of sense. But you're right, the submarine handball is
I've noticed some of the
worst.
phrases. I was watching, some of the games on the weekend, and some of the phrases that they use regularly in the AFL don't cross over to the AFLW as well as they used to. And the one that I noticed really doesn't... is they often say in the AFL and have for a very long time, when they are running wild on another side, they'll say, there's loose men everywhere. Yeah. Saying there's loose women everywhere does not have quite the same the ring to it. I mean, it's entertaining.
Might be good for promotion. But
that's right. I'm waiting for someone to say that. I'm really looking forward to that actually being said. Gareth Olver wrote in, my father-in-law is trying to get my daughters to barrack for Richmond. Why does he hate my kids?
Gee, don't know there, Gareth, but it's a fair point.
He really hates them.
Really hates your kids. But
what have your kids done?
What Gareth hasn't said in his question is, do they barrack for another team already?
I think they do barrack for another.
Or they just...
I think
they need a team.
I think Gareth's a Sydney supporter. Correct me if I'm wrong, Gareth, because that would be insulting if you're not, but I think he is. So you can understand why he wouldn't necessarily want that to happen. You got to indoctrinate your kids pretty early on.
You do, and he hasn't specified how old his daughters are. Are they old enough to make up their own mind?
I think they're young, he said.
So
in some of the stuff I saw.
But you read deeper into this question. It's his father-in-law.
Yeah, so
it's not even his dad. It's not the family grandfather.
Well, it is,
but not from his side.
From the opposition.
From the other side. From the opposition.
The opposition grandfather, as I like to call them.
See, I mean, look, I don't think he hates your kids, Gareth. I think he hates you.
Oh, I think both. I don't think you should call DHS.
Yeah.
It's like raising someone a Melbourne supporter is a big decision.
Oh, it is.
It's a lot to put on a kid.
It is. I'm getting a bit concerned this year because my 12-year-old son reminded me when Melbourne won these first two games that some years back, allegedly, I promised him that when Melbourne made the finals, I would take him to their final. And this was in his words, no matter where it is. So I guarantee you, if Melbourne make the 8 this year, the first final will be in
they'll be
Perth.
playing Eagles or something.
Yeah. I won't be playing Brisbane. Oh, it might be the Gold Coast. I'll take him to the Gold Coast for the weekend.
It'll be GWS. You're going to Greater Western Sydney.
Yeah. So
to watch a loss.
They come back to haunt you.
They do. The Barge Man wrote in, should Jack Watts hire Mitch Marsh's manager to negotiate a similar guaranteed selection clause in his contract? Do you think this Jack Watts thing is really... I reckon he's come back a bit half-assed. Goodwin's gone... Lift, mate. He'll lift and he'll be back in at some point. I mean, the question is he going to be always in Melbourne's best 22? But, I mean, it's very early. It's pre-season. Everyone's like...
And the thing is, you've got to remember, I mean, Jack Watts from day one has always had that sort of lackadaisical
and
hesitance around him.
And I don't think Goodwin's going to put up with that.
And
See, Roos had no choice because there was just no doubt that Watts was a good compared to in our top best 20 no matter what.
Last year their forward line was Hogan and Watts, and Garlett was their small. Yeah. The others you could raffle a lot, so you had to play him last year.
We did have Dawes.
As I say, and then you could raffle a lot.
This is a question for you that came in.
Yeah, I just saw this.
It just came in. Andrew, you must have mentioned this on air the other day. Andrew Carolyn said, is it true that Sergio's job at The Price is Right? Because he used to work there. You did mention that the other day.
Did I?
Yeah.
The Price is Right, did I?
He said, is it true that Sergio's job at The Price is Right was rigging the putting game? You did work on The Price is Right, didn't you?
I did.
What shows have you worked on? You worked on a lot of shows.
Oh, The Price is Right. Sale of the Century.
Yeah.
I think the piece de resistance was the show now regarded as one of probably the worst shows ever made. I don't even remember. Back in the day, they used to, when Start of the Century finished for the year, they'd put another show on at 7 o'clock over the summer period.
Yeah.
We did one year called Keynotes, hosted by Richard Wilkins.
Oh, I think I remember that.
It was a music game show. And there was 13 weeks. That was how long Start of the Century was off. So we made 65 episodes. And it's not often this happens, but the fill-in show got axed after 4 weeks.
What did they show instead? Replays or something?
They just showed
test pattern.
Test pattern, anything.
Was it that bad?
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
When you're making a show, do you know it's bad when you're making it?
Well, no. When we were making the show, that was the only time I ever worked with Richard Wilkins, and he was a ripping bloke. We had so much fun.
Oh, really? It was good.
But we had so much fun.
How often are people completely different to your image of them?
Oh, not often. Generally, you've got a fair idea. But Richard was a ripper because he knew that this was this wasn't going to get him into the Logies Hall of Fame.
So
keynotes.
He wasn't exactly investing a lot of.
He didn't care. He'd rock in, and as he said, at that point he was doing bits on the Today Show, but he wasn't fully established, and this was his point. He was still on contract to Channel 9.
He had to do it.
Kerry Packer said, "Richard, son, I want you to do this fill-in over the weekend, over the summer." Yeah. And he said, I had to do it. So, yeah, it wasn't the greatest show. But to get back to Andrew's question, rigging the putting game it's difficult to rig the putting game. If you
I like how you've thought about it.
If you remember, on The Price is Right, this is when they'd wheel it, the big long, like a putting green.
Yeah.
And the contestant, there'd be 6 different groceries, and they had to guess the prices in order of going up their value. And the more you got right, the closest you got to it,
the shorter
the putt, until it was down to about 18 inches, 12 inches to 18 inches.
Right, yeah.
And like not many people could miss that. And it always, but the thing was,
12 inches is a lot bigger than you often think it is.
It is, and 18 inches is a hell of a lot more on top of that as well. But the only way you could rig this was because it always used to be for one of the really big prizes. Like this would be for a car or an overseas holiday. And so you did, as a producer, you didn't want to make it too easy for them to get to the 12-inch line. You wanted to make these, generally a housewife who's never picked up a golf club in her life to putt from 12 feet away. And so what you do, you'd have the six groceries, but you'd have one in there that it was just impossible. That would look like it was $2, but was really $13.50.
Right,
and that would always stuff them up. That was the only way of rigging it,
So
Andrew.
go out of your way to try and stop people winning the car.
Oh, especially
if the car had gone a few times early in the season,
well, that's what would happen. You didn't want to give away too many cars. You'd only have so many cars per
so it's
series.
Rigged.
It's not rigged.
It's not fully rigged, but it's the degree of difficulty.
The degree of difficulty can be massaged, put it that way.
Semi-Pro with Will Farrell, where if they win, he gives away free corn dog. Oh, no, he does this one where if the guy hits a shot from half court, he wins a bunch of money. He doesn't have the money, and the guy hits
and
it.
the guy nails it.
This is a bit like you at the moment. Well, thank you. That's a very good one. Now, James has sent in a question. Why do you never answer my questions? Okay. Well, that's the end of that
Let's
podcast.
announce the T-shirt winner then.
Now, I thought...
Yeah, I'll hand this over to you this week because I picked the winner last week, but I reckon I'll leave it up to you this week.
I was thinking, actually, it wasn't even a question, but it was a statement. I did like...
Russ Dickinson.
Yeah, Russ Dickinson's one, which
Fabulous.
after taking 6 for in the first innings, O'Keefe couldn't improve in the second, only producing the same figures. That says to me that he learned nothing and will probably not improve from there. He also wins, as well as a T-shirt, a job on the Channel 9 commentary team with insights like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's far too insightful.
Now, once again, big thank you to our sponsors for making our podcast happen. We're getting very close to our supporters. Sorry, we're getting very close to getting into the writing for the season of the knee-jerk reaction, highly unhelpful guides, things like this. So if people can, please become supporters. It helps us to keep doing this.
And we've got other stuff we're planning for the season.
Yeah, lots of stuff happening. So would really appreciate that. There's a second show for the Dane Swan interview I'm doing during the comedy festival.
That's coming up. What are the dates again? You can't remember.
2nd or something?
Early April, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll put the link
I
in the
urge you to
show
go
notes.
buy tickets. I won't be at
The
that
first
show.
one's almost sold out. So we will see you all next week.
Well, we'll see you on Thursday with special guest Trevor Marmalade.
See you then.